Hi everyone. Hopefully not too many heavy heads this morning after the football yesterday. So today I'm here to talk about e-commerce and in particular the huge opportunity in the world of returns. So Doddle, you may or may not be aware, particularly in the UK, you may know of us historically as a B2C brand where we had our own parcel shops for a number of years in the UK and interacted with retailers, customers and carriers. More recently, we've moved into the B2B world and work with parcel carriers, retailers and 3PLs on both first mile and last mile and how we can improve those processes for the consumer. So today we'll be focusing on returns, but we also definitely do the first mile as well. A surprising trend you guys may not know about is that e-commerce volumes have grown immensely over the last decade. It's no surprise to anyone on this call. In fact, it's no surprise to anyone not on this call. But in 7 years, global volumes have quadrupled and pure play retailers like ASOS have changed the retail landscape. And omni-channel has become the strategy for the cornerstones of retail. So in the UK, for example, Next, John Lewis, and even the grocery industry are really starting to look at e-commerce and omni-channel and how that can affect their retail environment. And just to emphasize that, so 4 years ago, during the last World Cup, e-commerce represented 10% of all retail in developed markets. This year, in 2022, e-commerce has been forecast to represent 24% of retail in those same markets. So while it should be noted that was predicted before the current economic downturn, and it's difficult to predict how this year could end, it's still a huge increase and highlights how the retail world has evolved only recently. And actually, there's been Q3 results that have come out from retailers and parcel carriers that have actually appeared to not show a slowdown in volume or revenue at all. So we're hoping that it's going to continue to rise and continue to grow. And there's a key theme that has grown over those last 4 years as well, and that's the impact that e-commerce has had on the environment and will continue to have on the environment. So there's an estimated 30% rise in emissions from last mile by 2030. I know the guys later on will be presenting on this as well, I'm sure. But consumers do care about sustainability and they're starting to vote with their wallets. So you can see here some stats. 77% of consumers are conscious of the environmental impacts of their delivery. 47% of consumers wait longer if it was a more sustainable delivery. And 23% of consumers would actually pay more if it was a sustainable delivery. So no longer can retailers, via their carrier partners, have unsustainable delivery routes. Electric vans are becoming commonplace, particularly here in the UK. Pooler consolidation is becoming key to taking those delivery miles off the road.
22% of e-commerce orders are returns. Merchants are struggling to cope, but you can remove the roadblock. Doddle's digital returns platform allows carriers to provide their merchants with an enterprise-level solution for customer experience, analytics, and management of returns. When they succeed, you succeed. Visit doddle.com to learn more.
You can see here it's reflected in the checkout. So this is Farmerline in Belgium. I know we have bol.com speaking later, so I won't focus too much on this, but they're pushing a green agenda here of Pudo being more important for the environment than home delivery. So consumers are logging on and seeing the checkout here, and you can see a green leaf indicating which option is more sustainable and better for the environment. Consumers, retailers and parcel carriers are now conscious of the impact, and that's financially and environmentally, those growing volumes can cause. But it's not the only volume that's rising. So since December 2012, and this is what the graph should show, is that returns volumes have actually been growing faster than outbound volumes. So they're now 4 to 5 times higher than they were a decade ago. Our own data at Doddle shows that average returns rates across the UK, Germany, Italy and France is 23.44%. And that's expected to rise even further. And that's across all e-commerce sectors. So that includes grocery, that includes electronics, and a lot of hardware items that don't have high returns rates. For some retailers, and particularly in fast fashion, returns rates are hitting 40% or near to that. And we all know the macro trends of e-commerce compared to in-store purchasing. So consumers are unable to try items or see them in person, which means they order more, different sizes, different shapes, different colors, and therefore return more compared to in-store retail. So returns are proving a real issue for everyone. And like on the outbound I mentioned earlier, e-commerce returns are also starting to impact the environment. It's a terrible image here, and I'm sure a bit of an overreaction, but the impact of returns on the environment is starting to really dictate people's practices and consumer choice. But it's not actually a sustainability issue alone. So retailers are now grappling with the hidden cost of returns. You can see here from Roland Berger that for every £30 purchase that gets returned, it costs £20 for the retailer to receive the item and relist back on their websites. You can see customer care, transportation, reprocessing, markdown, and even disposal for broken items is really starting to cost on the return journey. And these are hidden across the reverse supply chain. So how are retailers reacting? Some so we've got Zara here, are trying to recuperate those costs by charging for returns. As we've seen this in the news recently, that more and more retailers are starting to charge for returns for e-commerce for the first time. Zara now charge £1.95 in the UK if it's an item that's being returned, unless it's returned into their store network. Well, obviously, they're trying to encourage consumers back into store. So they're passing those hidden costs into the consumers for the first time. It's new, relatively new for the UK, who have mostly been free returns. But for countries like the US or Australia, it's actually been a commonplace to pass those costs on to consumers. But it's not what all retailers want. In fact, it's probably not what any retailer really wants to do, to charge their consumer for this. ASOS made a promise recently to keep it free, and they'll continue to do so. And they know that their average basket value, their conversion rates, and their customer satisfaction scores are actually all higher when they offer consumers free returns. So they believe that free returns means more volume on the outbound. Ultimately, and this is what we believe, and the facts do dictate, is that returns are great. They're the reason for those crazy volumes we highlighted earlier on the outbound, and consumers feel more comfortable with the free return process. 78% of customers said they're more likely to purchase from a retailer if they offer free returns. ASOS are right. So charging for returns won't fix that core problem, because it creates more risk for the consumer. For example, if I was a consumer, I was buying a £10 t-shirt online, I'd be taking a gamble that the fit and the size are correct. However, if I'm having to then pay for that return if I'm wrong on the fit and the size being correct, less consumers then take that bet, which means less revenue and means less volume for the retailers as well. And that's obviously a nightmare for pure players who don't have in-store networks. And there must be a way to solve these issues with returns and keep those profits and those volumes high. We believe returns are almost at a breaking point now, and we're starting to see retailers crack under the pressure, particularly here in the UK. So Boohoo's profits sunk by 94% to 7.8 million, and they cited that the increasing returns rate was a key factor in those squeezed profits. Misguided recently fell into administration. They had to be rescued by Fraser's Group. And there's too many players in returns in the consumer journey. There's too many issues in that consumer journey, and no one really is stepping up and taking control. So e-commerce returns are currently unsustainable for most retailers, and that's both environmentally and that's financially as well. It's impacting fast fashion even more. We mentioned earlier, 40% returns rates are normal now in that sector, which is unsustainable at the costs and the £20 costs for every return. So where are the real issues? And you can see here the consumer journey on the outbound and returns journey. They buy an item online, they receive that item, it's gone great. They try that item on, doesn't fit, doesn't suit, however they want to do, they want to return that item. At this point, for most merchants who have their own, maybe it's in a parcel return slip, maybe there's you have to ring customer services. There's no consistency here. The biggest retailers, ASOS, etc., have a digital returns platform which consumers can then choose. You can limit consumers returning items out of stock, out of that returns window. But if it's physical, there's no way of actually stopping that. There's no way of getting the consumer to provide you data. Why am I returning it? I didn't even fill my slip in. I didn't tick the right box. You have no idea as a retailer why I'm returning my item. But also having to print labels. So if I ring the customer service desk and they email me a raw mail label or whichever label it is I'm going to be using to return, millennials, Gen Zs, people don't have printers at home. They're having to rush to university libraries to print labels, having to rush to the office to print labels. It's unsustainable and it's very inflexible for a consumer journey. So if I'm dropping then my item off, I've been able to fortunately get my item to a Pudo point. It doesn't work for heavy and bulky items, so I have to book a 2-man pickup from my home if it is heavy or bulky. Items then being shipped to the warehouse by these carriers. There's poor visibility for the retail and the 3PL of where the item is. All items follow the same journey. It doesn't matter if it's a very expensive item, a very cheap item, a broken item, or an item they want to get back on the website as soon as possible. They all follow the same journey. Poor consumer updates, poor tracking, and the consumer has no idea where their parcel is and where their refund is either. And it was also impact the 3PL. So the warehouses have no idea what's coming back, when it's coming back, or who it's coming back from. They're unable to predict the number of items arriving, which means they can't scale up or down their operations. They have no pre-sort knowledge. They have no idea how many broken items are arriving, how many items that just don't fit correctly are arriving, which they can restock straight away. And that obviously means that it takes longer and longer to get those items back in stock and back on the website. And obviously, at this point, the consumer has no idea where their refund is because it's entered the black hole of returns. So lots of call centers receive calls, receive emails, receive live chats from the consumer asking, where's my refund? And it ultimately leads to an unhappy consumer and unhappy retailer. It doesn't need to be like that. Without the physical capacity to sort and redistribute items and the technical capacity, To provide a returns portal to consumers, many retailers can't handle returns at scale, particularly at the rate they're currently experiencing them. And that's from the biggest down to the SMEs. Those retailers then turn to external providers to supply pieces of the returns puzzle. So the portal, the warehousing, the reprocessing, the actual logistics of the carrier handling the parcel. There's a certain segment here, and there's some people listening today, that control the most important part of the reverse logistics world for the retail customers. And it's where 3PL is uniquely positioned to step up. Instead of offering a part of the journey, the warehousing, 3PLs are the only providers that can handle the end-to-end return solution for retailers. From the moment a consumer wants to register a return through to distribution, sorting, repair, and redistribution, 3PLs could and should provide a single, efficient journey for both their retailers and the end consumer. So this is the old world of 3PLs. The online retailers are all developing their own solutions and returns, or they're having to go to a third party. Customer experience is therefore dependent on the sophistication of a retailer. It's fantastic with the highest and biggest retailers. It's awful potentially with SMEs. A call centers-based processing, which results in email chipping labels. We mentioned this earlier, having to print labels at home, having to ring up people, having to really pay for operational call centers. Then print-at-home solutions create a pain point for consumers. I don't have a printer. How do I print my label? There's limited data capture at this point, so most retailers don't know why items are coming back. They can't act on that data early enough. And 3PLs really offer any solution to their retail clients to support their returns challenges. They do the operational bit, excellent. They do it fantastically, but they don't offer an end-to-end solution at the moment. But in the new world, and where we believe e-commerce returns will be going, leading 3PLs will start to take the initiative. They'll start to provide a digital return solution to both existing and new customers. It's great for stickiness, but it's also great for customer acquisition. You can provide a simple digital experience in keeping with the online purchase experience. So the outbound is great. The checkout is great. The returns journey is very, very inconsistent. You can provide consumers multiple options for returns using different carriers, using different networks. And then retailers can then have lower call center costs, significant data opportunity. They know what's coming back, why it's coming back, and where it's coming back from. That means the consumer has a consistent experience for returns. And as we know, 8 out of 10 consumers will stop shopping with retailers after a negative returns experience. So 3PLs could really offer their retailers increased customer loyalty and lifetime value. Most retailers at the moment treat returns the same, and no matter what the value is, or the customer is, or the type of item, you can collect data from consumers before it then hits the warehouse. And 3PLs could then therefore make operational decisions to provide the most efficient route for returns on an individual basis. So for example, if you think a 3PL does a deal with JD Sport, at the moment, a £200 pair of trainers is mostly being treated the same as a £5 pair of socks. Surely one should be prioritized and be available for resale quicker than the other. So we believe it's all about collecting and harnessing data before that's sought to treat items on an individual basis, which will improve 3PL efficiency and pass on savings to retailers and ultimately onto the consumers and avoid moving away from free returns. 3PLs can go to retailers and they can tell them their services could mean that 1 in 5 of your returns don't even need to come back to the warehouse. Let the consumer keep the £5 pair of socks, give them a refund, and save on all of those costs that would have got those socks back on the website. Amazon do this really efficiently, particularly in the UK. So for low cost or damaged items, most of the time they don't even say to the consumer, send them back. They say, look, keep them, here's your refund. Why do we even need them back? They're broken, these items don't work. But most retailers don't know that information until it hits the warehouse. It obviously leads to massive amounts of recycling facilities having to scale up what they do to broken returns. High value items, therefore, can be available for resale faster. And it's a great USP that 3PLs can then use to build partnerships with retailers, and rather than using commoditized fees and really treating it on an item per item basis. The more data that's collected in the beginning, the more efficient and the cost saving the returns process will be. We believe 3PLs are uniquely positioned to pass these savings on to retailers, and you can secure growth on both sides. So you can reduce the impact of returns logistics, you can save costs, you can save profits, and you can ultimately save the environment as well. To summarize, we do believe that 3PLs could be the future of e-commerce returns. 3PLs do hold a unique position in the returns market for retailers, and they're the only providers capable of really offering a true end-to-end solution from when that consumer initially wants to return an item through to the warehousing. And instead of outsourcing parts of the journey, retailers can then rely on their 3PL to manage the entire returns journey. For the 3PLs that are here listening today, I implore you, please do consider taking control of the full end-to-end journey for your retailers. And for the retailers here, I implore you to ask your 3PLs to do better. So my email's here. You can contact me if you need any more information or any more data of what I've showed today, happy to share sources, happy to put returns with anyone.
Jack, thank you very much. Just a second. I will wait for a few questions, but it's great, I think, that we're starting the last mile on the returns, because this feels like the hardest of it all to sort out through all of this. But where should the journey start for a 3PL and a retailer when they realize that the return process is not working? Is it really, certainly what you talked about, the technology, how important it is, but should they look at what they are sending to start with?
Yeah, so you know the items that are on the outbound, because most 3PLs will offer the outbound and the returns journey. So you'll have some sort of insight into the consumers in the first place. And if you know certain items are being returned or certain customers are returning items, you can make decisions before the consumer even thinks about doing the return. But I would say to most retailers and most 3PLs to go and look and analyze the top retailers, particularly in the UK, and how they handle returns. So go and look at how ASOS do it, go and look at how Amazon do it, and copy them. Start to see, why are these massive companies handling millions and millions of parcels each year doing it like this, and why am I not? The efficiencies that people at Amazon and ASOS can bring to the returns journey mean they can keep returns free, meaning they can say to the consumer, keep that parcel, we don't need it back, it's going to cost us more to get it back into our ecosystem. But most SMEs don't have enough technical resource or priority list to really focus on building their own returns portal. And so they're going to third-party external providers to do this. 3PL should be owning it. They should say, right, we're going to build our own, we're going to license our own, buy our own, and start to give this to our retailers for free. Because it's really going to make them sticky. It's going to make them much better in terms of acquisition, getting more retailers on board. But equally also reduces their costs and reduces their operational expenditure and the damage that we're providing to the environment at the moment.
Another thing which is in a way related to this, you mentioned the word consumers, who have a huge responsibility here, and not just, we are coming probably from the business perspective, but we are also consumers. And I know Doddle also works on that. Do you think that 3PL should also work on educating the consumers now? Is this their spot as well, or is this just the operational delivery and warehousing?
Oh, I think consumer awareness is very important. And on the outbound, retailers are talking about this because we know that consumers care. You saw the Farmer line checkout earlier with the green sustainable option. On the returns journey, it doesn't really work like that. It's the quickest way to get a parcel back, and there are operational efficiencies because as a consumer, you're dropping into Pudo initially, unless it's a large item being picked up from home. So you are going more sustainable. You're reducing drivers on the road regardless, because there's less drivers on the road picking up from home as opposed to the delivery outbound. But I do think that if you had different options on the return journey, so this option here will cost you nothing and it's going to be a more sustainable option, but it might take a little bit longer till you get your refund back. That sort of stuff I think will start to change over the coming years as consumers become more and more aware that it's not just the outbound that's affecting the environment, it's also the return journey. I think retailers and 3PLs will start to really push that in terms of education to their consumers.
Well, Jack, thank you very much for your time. We will be continuing the conversations with Doddle later this month with different interviews and stories. And as Jack mentioned, you are able to contact him on email. You can find the details on our website as well as on Doddle's website, obviously. Jack, thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you, everyone.